Hurricane Harvey, when it hit Texas coast and it was headed towards Houston, people in Houston knew it was coming for a week because it was moving so slow. And so you had the panic of knowing that a hurricane was going to hit you for a week. Harvey hit Houston and it sat on top of Houston for 5 days.
Right.
5 days under a hurricane before it creeped away and then just kind of vanished. And which is one of the things hurricanes do. I went through Hurricane Harvey. It changed my life. I know this sounds terrible, but it changed my life in so many great ways.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Molten Truth. I am your host, Zoe Michaels. We are here. I think this actually may be our first writer in season 2 up to now.
Wow.
All of our guests have been our musicians because we decided to go with a different note this season. We're mixing it up a little bit more. We still love talking to our writers because that's how I got my start. I wouldn't even be doing a podcast had I not gotten my start by writing books. So we love talking to our writers and other creatives. One day I hope to talk to maybe someone out there who's a chef. So anyone who has a creative bent, that's who we're looking for. For more information about the Molten Truth, please check out zoemichaels.com. In the meantime, we are here to talk to Russell. Russell, I am so excited to have you with us today. I know we had spoken briefly a week or two ago, and I'd gotten a little bit about you. You and I both hail from Texas. I lived there for 15 or 20 years off and on. I moved there twice during my childhood, moved back a third time as an adult. It's one of those places that you can't help but it sucks you back in, and because the people there, you just get so attached. I feel like, I don't know if that's been your experience, but that was
Except for the heat. Except
well,
for the heat. Because
that's
it's
the
hot
one
as heck.
thing, especially
And
down south.
I'm very worried about being your first writer of the season because musicians are way cooler than writers. They just are. They're cooler, they have cooler lifestyles, not better, probably worse, but cooler lifestyles. It was a wise decision, Zoe, and I just hope that I can, you know, pull my weight.
I have no doubt you will. You know, at the end of the day, it's all that creativity. And the writers have to go in a different, we have to go a little deeper, I think, sometimes. We have a limited range to catch our audience attention. We don't get to talk, sing a song in front of an audience of 5, 10, 100, or 1,000 people. If we don't get a person's attention in the first few sentences or paragraph, we've lost our audience with just one
Zoe,
person.
I hate the truth in that. I got to tell you, I hate the truth in that. You know, I don't know if you've ever read Proust. Proust is uh, uh, a French writer. He's my favorite writer. He wrote in the teens and the 20s of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And uh, he goes on and on and on in this beautiful language, but he never tries to get your attention. But in the world that we live in now, you have a few lines, you have a couple of paragraphs, you have one chapter, and if you don't grab the reader right there, you lose the reader. I hate it that it's that way, but that's the way it is.
I
That's the
agree.
way I have to write because that's the way we have to write.
Yeah. Which is so sad because some of the best books I've ever read, I'm going to tell a story on myself. My family, I grew up, my mom and my sister absolutely loved Gone with the Wind. So I grew up watching that as a movie, and I tried to read the book. And I tried to read that book 4 or 5 times before I ever got past the first chapter. I could not get past that first chapter. I was so bored after the first chapter. But then once I got past that chapter, I loved that book. It's one of my favorite books now, and I use books now to sleep, so it's one of my favorite sleeping books. but yes, um, it's crazy. You know, the advantage that books had, what, even 30, 40 years ago, they don't have the pressure to get someone's attention back then that we do now. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong
And
about that.
I think it's going to be worse. I think it's going to get worse. I know Japan, uh, novelettes instead of novels is the thing.
Hmm.
Uh, the youngest generation in Japan are reading. They want books written so you can read it on your telephone, and especially the young women of Japan. Uh, they buy novelettes now,
Yeah.
and they're the buyers in that community. Just like women buy 80% of the books in America, they buy. That's also true in Japan. But the young people are mainly buying novelettes that they can read on their phone. That's a thing. So that's a whole different type of writing.
Right. Which, and this is maybe me showing my age. I did that once. I read one of these little novelettes. I think I read it in 10 minutes. And I was just so frustrated by how short the story was. You know, it was just kind of like, you know, telling a kid a bedtime story to get them to go to sleep. You know, once upon a time, Jack and Jill went up the hill, the end. You know,
Right.
and it was frustrating because it wasn't really a story to my way of thinking. I
But
like
that's what's
a
selling in
story.
Japan.
Yeah. And probably the younger generations now, maybe that's just all the attention span that they have. Maybe they don't like a real story. Maybe that's all they can handle. But I sure don't like it.
Well, books are getting shorter, books are
Hmm.
getting thinner. It's part of the marketing. When you worry about marketing your book after you finish it, that's something you have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the saving grace is, you know, you can have a series, but then again, you know, you finish a book and then it's like, oh, I've got to buy this other book. Now I've got to buy this other book to get the rest of the story. You know, pluses and minuses.
Well, there's whole websites now that authors are being sucked into where readers go to those websites and they don't even buy a chapter of a book, but they buy a scene of a book. They actually pay for it. And the writers continuously writing and posting and selling new scenes. And it's a whole industry now have you heard about it?
This is the first I'm hearing about that.
Oh, yeah, there's whole websites. You should check it, and your listeners should check it. There's websites where you can uh, pay per scene to read books, and there's been some novelists transition because they've written so much of the story that they've actually published it in more traditional form. And a couple of the bestsellers now have started off there.
I suppose there's maybe some value in that because you've got a built-in audience. You know that audience likes the storyline, and then you're safe to actually write the full book because now you know people are maybe likely to read it. So I could see where there might be some value to that.
You know what the irony is? The irony is that's how the generation that Dickens wrote in Great Britain, what, 200 years ago now or more, where he wrote stories. uh they were chat he would write a chapter, it would be in the magazine, and his whole books were published in magazines a chapter at a time. And the true story about Dickens was he would pay attention to the reaction of the readers in one chapter, and he would alter his book and the next chapters based upon how the readers were reacting to the chapters that they had read.
Sounds like a smart businessman.
I don't know how smart Dickens was as far as a businessman, but he was really smart on writing. And it's just ironic that uh, we've come back around in a spiral of history on how people write.
It is interesting. It makes me wonder about, you know, writers like Alexandre Dumas. You know, I will always love The Count of Monte Cristo, but again, I love it for its length and its level of detail. And you know, it makes me wonder, you know, what was the environment he wrote in when he put out that book? Did he have the critics? Did people even pay attention to that book at that point in time, or was he basically like Jimmy Stewart, that it didn't gain popularity until much later, kind of a thing? It makes you wonder.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's what, and it touches me that we both love French writers. It's just they're several hundred years apart. But I know that Proust, uh, I mean, he had to publish his first book himself because everyone said, this is boring. Nobody wants it.
Hmm. And yet he's so famous. I mean, and I would call him, for lack of a better expression, the highbrow, like the people who are really intellectuals. Are When you hear about Proust, you think of very intellectual people. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong. It's just, it's a flavor that you've got to taste. It's like a kimchi. It's a Korean sauce. You will not like it the first time you taste it. You will not like Proust the first time you start reading it. You have to taste it 10 times before you say, I really like kimchi. Well, Proust is like that. Yeah, it takes a lot of taste before you develop a taste.
I am glad to know that. I've actually never picked up anything by Proust ever. I've only ever heard of him. So maybe I will sample this
You
and,
should
and see
try
what I
it,
think.
especially if you love falling to sleep as you read,
And I
because it's a
do.
gentle memory of Proustian thought. You'll love it.
Have to keep that in mind. I will definitely have to try that out. But yeah, I definitely will have to do that during my waking hours. Though I never use a book I don't know backwards and forwards for sleep because I'm too interested. I have to know
Actually,
a book well
understand that.
first.
I understand that too. I actually do the exact same thing,
Yeah, yeah. You
and
got to
then
have something
constant
that turns off your
repetition.
mind.
Right. It keeps you from thinking about other things. Uh, I have to do something like that because I will wake up at 2 o'clock working in my brain,
Yes,
so I have to keep it turned off.
that's exactly it. Yeah, because I could keep myself up for hours just thinking and thinking, whether it's storylines or this about life and this and that. Yeah, you got to have some kind of switch that goes click, close for business. And for me, that's the books that are super familiar. So,
One of the secrets to hard sleep is a routine that you put yourself in every night. And for you, the whole act or routine of doing the same book every night, listening to as it puts you to sleep, that's your routine. So it's actually the act of a routine that helps your mind relax.
absolutely. Now, to be fair, I do switch up the books periodically because even that I get bored. So I've got
Yeah,
well-worn
exactly.
favorites, and it's always audio because light, not conducive to sleep. So
Exactly.
audiobook, super familiar, changing it up periodically because let's keep the mind engaged enough to go, okay, click, I'm asleep now. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about sleep. We're here to talk about you and your books. So as much fun as I'm having with this conversation, we probably need to tell our audience what you've been up to. Um,
Well,
so tell
go
me,
ahead.
tell us. I've got this note here about something about a murder thriller in a hurricane.
Okay, yes. So, uh, I write murder thrillers, right? The first one was Murder for Me.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it was a bestseller on Amazon. The second one is Murder by Storm. Uh, this is a murder thriller in Houston during Hurricane Harvey. So, Hurricane Harvey, when it hit Texas coast and it was headed towards Houston, people in Houston knew it was coming for a week because it was moving so slow. And so you had the panic of knowing that a hurricane was going to hit you for a week. And the scenes that you can imagine watching people. And then Harvey hit Houston and it sat on top of Houston for 5 days. 5 days under a hurricane before it creeped away and then just kind of vanished. and which is one of the things hurricanes do. And so when I was writing the book, there are so I went through Hurricane Harvey. It changed my life. I know this sounds terrible, but it changed my life in so many great ways because of the things that I saw and was involved in. I mean, when you see you're in a hurricane and you see complete strangers risking their lives for other people. They don't care what race they are, what religion they are, anything. They don't know them, but they risk their lives to save them when someone's in trouble. That changes your life. And I spent 5 days because I lived in a high rise right across the park from the convention center that became the refugee center for thousands and thousands of people. And I would walk every day across the park in the hurricane. It was quite entertaining too, with the trees bending. It was to help people as the National Guard brought them in the trucks. And these people were wiped out. Their homes were wiped out. They, th- their clothes were soaked. And for 5 days, I helped those people. That's what I did for 5 days. And then you know this about Houston. If you know Texas, Houston is a place where a lot of people come that aren't connected to Texas or Houston because they come here to work. So they don't really have friends. They don't have family. And so when the hurricane left for weeks, I was on these teams where we would hit houses of complete strangers. We didn't know them. It didn't matter who they were. These were people that had been, their homes were wiped out. And then one day we would gut the home, get it ready for repair, and then the next day move on to the next house. And we did that for weeks, completely saving people because you would walk into the home and they're just stunned. And all these things, and so many more things that if you don't see it, you don't believe it. I wanted to write about. So as I'm writing this murder thriller, I put it in the hurricane because I remember during the hurricane also, Zoe, thinking, wow, DNA evidence really can't survive flood water. I mean, it's just a fact. Or the
Right.
fact that the police are never anywhere because they're everywhere where they have to be. So there are no police. And so it just made it the perfect time. Plus, all the tension and all the catastrophes that happened during the hurricane happened. I put that in a murder thriller. It's what I did.
Yeah. No, when you told me about that when we were talking, I was like, wow, that really is the perfect setting for a story because so it's such a real possibility. It's crazy, but it really could happen that way if someone had a mind to do that, if they were crazy enough to risk their life in that situation, that would be it. But it was a very interesting point of view to think about that happening. It definitely makes for a great story. So I was
Well,
very
here's
curious about that.
that's funny you say that about crazy enough to do it because here's something weird I'm going to tell you. When a hurricane sits on top of you for 5 days,
Mhm.
uh, you still have a routine that you go through and you do things like when I walked across the park in the hurricane to get to the refugee center to help people,
Yeah,
do that every day. I did it. I would do it early in the morning to help those people. Then I would take a couple of hours break at lunch and go back across the park, then go back until during the hurricane. I mean, it's just something you do, right?
yeah. It
It's crazy.
it
I
is.
actually walked across downtown during Hurricane Harvey because a mid-rise caught on fire. Fire trucks are there during a hurricane trying to put this fire out and keep it. It was crazy. So I actually walked over there. I walked down to the courthouse because the top bottom three floors of the courthouse flooded.
I
So I
believe
walked
it.
over there to see it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can there's actually life still goes on during a hurricane, which is part of the story.
True. Yeah,
And I have some pretty crazy characters too. So,
which helps feed the story.
right.
Absolutely. Now I'm trying to remember. because there was been so many hurricanes. I'm trying to remember because I lived in Texas at least for a few of the hurricanes. Was Hurricane Harvey the one where everyone got stuck on the freeway on I-10, like trying to leave?
That's a lot of hurricanes.
I remember one
But
specifically, like it made the big news, like
that
people
was the
running out of
hurricane
gas.
before Harvey. That was the
Okay.
hurricane before Harvey where everyone panicked. And that's one of the reasons why people didn't leave as much, even though it took Harvey a week to
Mhm.
get to Houston
Yeah.
because of what happened during the last hurricane. And then but during Harvey, there was 52 inches of rain because it sat on it so long. And so, and a dam broke and it flooded it, you know, big subdivisions that had never flooded before, and the homes were wiped out.
Right. That's the thing too. When I think of Houston, I think of flash flooding. I can't think how many times
Yeah,
my
that's a
aunt and uncle would tell me about flash floods because they lived in Spring, which is just on the north side of Houston there. So many stories about the flash floods that they would have to
yeah,
deal
that's
with.
part of daily life dealing with flash floods.
Yes, yes. Texas. I have very fond memories of Texas, but those aren't among those. But yeah. But I mean, it definitely is interesting. Um, you've got another book you're currently working on.
Murder by Trial,
Uh-huh.
which you just hearing this podcast. I've had an epiphany. I've been quite a few chapters in it. I'm actually going to restart the whole book because I had this great idea in my sleep over the weekend, and I woke up and I actually called my publisher saying I'm starting over. And she was not very happy with me, but it was. Uh, I had this great dream about I'm actually going to put Murder by Storm in the book about that book came out and the publicity that caused for during the Murder by Trial. So uh yes, I am working on it. Uh I have a couple of things I want to do in this book. I want to tell the story as I told you before, Zoe, which it sounds strange. There's something if you're a trial lawyer. I was a trial lawyer for 41 years. And that is there are multiple sets of true facts. And I know that doesn't sound correct, but it is. There's the facts that the public knows. And because of the facts the public knows, sometimes a jury will make a decision and the public's going, what the heck? How can they make that decision when this and this and this is true? But then you have another set of facts that is usually somewhat different than what the public knows, that a few of the lawyers know, a few of the police know, detectives, the district attorney, and the judge. And then there's a whole third set of facts that the jury hears and that they make their decision on. And sometimes that set of facts is completely different than all the other sets of facts. And that's why the public sometimes reacts the way they do to what a jury decides, because a jury doesn't hear what the public has and they're not allowed to make their decision on that. And so you have these three sets of facts and they conflict a lot of the time. And I want to write about that. I want to educate my readers about how strange that is and what situation that puts people in.
Right.
And uh, I also, it, I talked to you about this, is there was a book called Dungeons of the Confederacy. It was a 1920s Pulitzer Prize winner. And in that book, uh, there's a character that is so obtuse and repugnant, but you cannot forget this character. And when TV writers try to create a character like this is who they're thinking of. It's someone both in some way repellent and some way unbelievably unforgettable that you think about while you're driving the car. For some reason, when you're in the shower, you think about these characters. And uh, I want to write about somebody like that in the book. And it took me quite a few chapters. And I'm a planner, not a pantser. That means I like to outline my books ahead of time. I don't just write by the seat of my pants. And uh, it was I had to completely re-outline my book because I found this character who on the initial outline was just a minor character. But oh my God, he's so perfect. Nobody's going to be able to forget this guy. And nobody is going to think there's anything attractive about this guy. They're going to just think this is the most unattractive person they ever could not forget. I found this guy. Of course, now I have to re-outline it again because of this epiphany I've had over the weekend. So
It sounds good
I can
though.
actually institute it better.
Right. In my head, I'm picturing Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park.
Oh, exactly. And you don't know how close that guy is. In fact, until you said it, that hadn't occurred to me. But you couldn't believe how close that character is to the character in Dungeons and Confederacy written in the 20s.
Yeah. Maybe the same inspiration. Maybe that
I'm
guy.
actually positive it is
Yeah.
because that's a thing, right?
Yep. Yep. If not by the person who wrote the character for Jurassic Park, perhaps by the actor himself. But someone somewhere must have been
As a
inspired by
writer,
that.
as a writer, I hope it's more the script writer and not the actor.
Hopefully. Though I could see where maybe it could be the actor, just given the types of roles he likes to play, that maybe.
Yeah, because Newman is that same guy, right?
Exactly.
Newman is that same guy. Yeah,
You
you
know?
know, I mean, the writers actually put that repugnant part of the character in the writing because they always have Jerry saying, "Hello, Newman."
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it could be a little bit of, both of those elements. It'd be interesting. It makes me wonder if he has a biography. I maybe should check out and see if he wrote anything. May have to look into that one. So
What I would like to know is how much is the actor like that, or is he just a really good actor?
I hope he's a really good
And
actor.
that's what I want to find out.
I hope that he's a good actor. I hate to think that anyone's not nice. I know that's not always the case, but I like to think best of people if possible. So I'm rooting for him
You're
to
like
be a
my
good guy.
wife. You're like my wife. I get yeah. I do, I did divorce work for 40 years, right? I
I was
don't always think the best of people. I frankly am always aiming at the worst in people, right? Which means that when I would come home at night, she would say, "You're not at work anymore."
it's a hard thing, depending on what you do for a living. Even when you want to believe the best in people, sometimes people just disappoint you and or frustrate you. I mean, in my day job, thank goodness people can't see me. I roll my eyes so many times during the day as I talk to people because I'm just like frustrated with them, or just we're just going to leave it at that, frustrated with them. It's just, thank goodness they can't see me and they can just hear a nice calm sweet voice instead of the actual
Well, you
expressions
seem to
and
sound, I
things.
mean, you present yourself here as this nice, sweet lady. So
And hopefully that carries across when I'm having the conversation, even with the most frustrating of persons. But sometimes there's just people out there you just want to go bang your head against the wall, or theoretically hang up on them, even though you're not ever gonna hang up on them. But they're just people who disappoint you. So I can't even imagine that in the job as a lawyer of any type, let alone a divorced lawyer, where you're hearing all kinds of negativity from the
I
spouse.
have so many stories I could tell
Oh,
you.
I bet you
I have
do.
so many unbelievable stories. But the simplest thing is, the people that I represented like that would always they were always charged more because when people disappoint you and you're the lawyer, you have to redo your work, which means you have to bill them for more.
If only it worked that way in every profession.
Right. As a lawyer, though, that's how you deal with it.
And in some jobs too, I know like construction work, sometimes they'll do that. They'll build a job higher to actually hope in hopes that the person will go find a different builder. They'll be like, we really don't want this job, so we're going to build it at this rate in hopes that they'll go to this builder. And if they come to me, well, at least I've made more money theoretically. My ex-husband did that
I
kind of
hate
work.
that you say that. I hate that you say that. Right now, we are redoing a home that we don't. I'm at an apartment now. I've lived in 7 different residences this year because we've
Oh,
been moving around the United States, traveling to Europe and stuff. And we bought a house and we gutted it, and we have a construction company working on it now. And I refer to the home as the money pit.
oh boy.
So I hate your story.
I
I
am
hope I'm not.
sorry. Sorry about that. I will tell you, based on what little I know from all those years with my ex husband, is that basically whatever you're being charged in materials, plan on being charged the same amount by the contractor. That's usually the rule of thumb. It's usually equal amounts.
Well, I love my contractor.
Well, that's
I'm
good.
just,
That's good then.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Quality workmanship means everything because if you don't trust your contractor, if they're not doing quality work, you've lost the battle before you ever began.
Yeah, I got this story. So my general contractor follows his subs around. They put some, they placed brick because we had this new big window put in, and he made them take all the brick off because it wasn't laid straight enough for him.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to redo it. I
Wow.
love this guy. I love this guy.
Quality. That speaks to quality and integrity, and you have to love that. Sometimes it's
And
worth paying a little more for quality.
right. You getting back to the subject, you asked me about murder by trial that
Yes.
I'm writing. So when I was in law school, I worked for a district attorney's office in Amarillo one summer. And my job, there was a change of venue, triple capital murder case. It was to change a venue to Galveston, Texas. And my job for the whole summer, I lived in Gatto's Hotel. And my job was to drive witnesses from the airport to the courthouse. And then after they testified, drive them back. And the whole summer, there was an expected shootout because of the family of the people that were on trial. So everyone had their own bodyguard. So I was a law student with my own bodyguard for the summer. It was the craziest thing. But it was a change of venue capital murder case. And I wanted to write about that too. So that's part of what I'm writing about in my next case is the whole legal nonsense and uh, untold stories that the general public doesn't know about something like that. It's crazy.
I can't wait to hear about this murder by trial book when it comes out. Now, do you have an estimated timeline that you gave your publisher as to when you think you might be finished with the book?
Well, uh, I've got 2 books out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm starting it over this week after what I told my publisher yesterday, it'll probably be another 6 months before I'm finished and ready to give it to the editor. So it's probably another year.
Okay.
Books take a long time, and I'm not. There's some of these amazing writers that can write a book a year. My wife, who reads like 150 books a year, has one author that she really loves that writes 3 books a year. I can't imagine that.
That's
That's a
amazing.
book every 4 months.
Wow.
And I'm not that guy,
No,
right? I'm
but
not that person.
better to
All
have
right.
quality, a good solid story that, if it takes 6 months to write it, nothing wrong with that. And then, the editing time, no fault on that at all.
Right. But uh, I'm still doing these promotions for Murder by Storm, right? I won the Fire Award for my book. I was really excited about that. Though when they told me, I just looked at them and they were like, "You mean you're not happy?" And I was like, "No, I'm shocked." Right. But I won the Fire Award. It was bestseller. It's about uh, two people, a detective that's kind of a unsuccessful senior detective trying to catch a psychopath named Marilyn that's always three moves ahead of him on the chessboard. And he's also kind of a comical relief. I actually, the guy that I based OC Sam's the detective on
Hmm.
is actually one of my best friends. He's an odd character, and he's just somebody, you know, as you know this, you go through life and you meet a lot of people, but there are very few people that you just can't, they're just different than everyone else.
True.
And in the life that I went through, when I came across one of these rare characters, I would always think, this is somebody I have to write about. And in Murder for Me, in the first book, I compiled these people, and the story that these characters created was a murder thriller, which we continued on in Murder by Storm. And there's comical things about O.C. Sims that I just had to write about, like a know-it-all that is right almost all the time, but it's funny the way he's always interjecting himself in everybody and the way people react, or the fact that he wears his pants up around his navel. It's the strangest thing in the world. Or he's always wears black cowboy boots. Now in Houston, cowboy boots are a lot more common than anywhere else. But for the
Yeah.
rest of the country, someone that wears black cowboy boots all the time, that's a strange thing.
Yep.
Or that he has this weird mustache that does not move with the rest of his face when he talks. It moves independently, his face, like it's a cat, it's like it's a separate living organism.
Yeah.
And when he talks, y- you can't keep from looking at the mustache because why does it not move with the rest of his mouth? It's the strangest thing in the world.
It's his
This is
own
a true thing.
character. It's a separate character from him. I love it. That sounds like a great description.
But we all need, comic relief, especially during a murder thriller. I had one reader tell me, Russell, I can only read 10 pages at a time. Then I get too nervous and I have to set it down for a while. I'm not sure if that's good or not, but that's what he said. But that's why I put in comic relief too.
Yeah. Break it up a little bit for them. Yeah. I think that's very thoughtful, and I'm sure it helps add a little spice to the story. And we all need a little spice now and then. I think that's really good. So, there was something when we were talking that really impressed me about you just as a person. So you had mentioned, I think you said you had been, were you a divorce attorney for 40 years or just 40 years as an attorney? I couldn't.
41 years as an attorney, the
Mhm.
last 20 almost exclusively as a divorce attorney and a criminal attorney,
Okay. And what was impressive is usually when we think of divorce attorneys, usually they themselves are divorced, but
many times.
you've been married 41 years to the same woman. And that was what was
The same woman.
impressive. So you've
Yes.
been, I would say, very successfully married all these years, despite being a divorce lawyer. I mean, that's exceptional. So I just really wanted to
And
take
she
note
would
of that.
say that we have been married successfully most of the, but yes, we've been married 41 years. We're still happily married most of the time, unless I'm in trouble.
Well, as with most marriages, right? But I mean, that's no small feat, especially in the era we live in. I mean, divorce happens so much more frequently now than it did even, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. It seems like every year it just becomes more and more common, rampant, how whatever adjective you want to use, but it's just more and more common. So it's uncommon for people to stick together the way you and your wife have done. So for me, that's noteworthy, and I think it was worthy of mentioning here. That
Thank you for saying it. We found that adaptability is one of the things that kept us together.
well,
We're able to
absolutely.
adapt as each other changes and grew.
Absolutely. And I would even go so far as to say probably great communication between the two of you, because communication is the lifeblood of a marriage. Compromising, knowing
Oh,
how
it
to
is.
compromise in a healthy way. I mean, those are
That's
huge
probably why I
skills.
refer to it as adaptability, because you have to. It's different than compromising in my mind.
Mhm.
I We have to adapt to each other as our needs change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. True, because yeah, compromise could be misinterpreted. That's there comes a point where it could be unhealthy. So adaptability maybe is a better term for that. But yeah, absolutely. I did not want that to go unacknowledged during our conversation
Thank
because
you.
that is just it's a tremendous. I just don't even know how to say it. It's rare and so noteworthy.
Thank you
So,
so much.
well, you're welcome. So, as we're getting toward the end of our time together, we always have a random question left by a previous guest. And then I have you leave a random question for our next guest, who we don't really know who the next guest is going to be yet.
I know, and
So,
I have the weirdest question in the world for them.
well, and we like the weird questions. Weird questions work, and we can always adapt as needed. So, the last guest asked the question, if you were able to solve a huge problem for someone who brought you harm, would you do it?
Yes, but it would be difficult. That's the true answer without a facade. It would be difficult because I have trouble forgetting or forgiving, which is weird because I've been married 41 years and, that's constant forgiving and forgetting. So it's weird, but it would be difficult. But I must say, in my career, I have been hired by those. I have actually been hired to solve problems or rescue people that had done me harm.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
did a good job for them. So professionally, the answer would be would be absolutely. I was also, as I raised three children, they're adults now. And during the time that I raised them, I was the stereotypical family nerd. I was the coach of the little league and I was at all their practices. So I've coached like 35 different teams of both girls and boys in all sports, from hockey and baseball, basketball, you name it, I've coached it. A lot of softball for girls. And during that time, I coached the children of people that had done me harm. And I was every bit as supportive and coaching and as I was with all the other children. So I guess in that aspect, I found no problem at it. I found it as something compelling and requiring. So I don't know what the answer is, but that's the answer.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair answer. I think a lot of us would find it challenging to do something, like that for someone who had harmed us. It's a little bit easier with someone that you have an emotional investment in, like with our spouse. We're emotionally vested. But to someone we have no vested interest in who harmed us, it's a little more difficult. So it does take a little extra
Uh,
effort.
right. I am a massively imperfect person, constantly struggling to do better.
And we should all aspire to be the same way. So, you recognize it and you're working at that again. I can only say, kudos on that, another great example for a mini to emulate. So thank you for that. So
I don't know if I want to be a good
you don't want to be an example, good or bad.
no, on that. I don't know if I want to. I'm constantly struggling to do better.
Well, and we all should. A friend of mine many years ago once told me that, what, no matter who you are, someone in the world somewhere looks up to you. It's inescapable. Someone somewhere, whether you realize it or not, looks up to you. And it makes you think, okay, well then maybe I need to really take care with my choices and my actions, because hopefully you're setting a good example instead of a bad one. Because good or bad, someone's going to imitate it. Hopefully it's for the good. So, did you have a chance to think of a question for the next guest?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Marcus Aurelius said to uh, not worry, those things that you can control, control them, and those things that you can't control, don't think about or worry about.
Hmm.
So, for your next guest, my question is, how do they control their worry?
Okay, I think that's a really great question, because some of us really are big worriers. So that's an excellent question. So as we wrap things up, I do want the audience to acknowledge, especially for those of who won't see the video, who will only hear the audio. Russell does have a website. It is russelllittleauthor.com. It will also be noted in the notes underneath the I don't know what we call it, but the description, I guess, under YouTube and all the other channels. Um, Russell, I would guess your books are available on Amazon. That would be an obvious choice, but where else would others find your books aside from your website and Amazon?
I think that's the best place to go.
Okay, just those two
That's
websites.
where I think the best place to go. Yes.
Okay. And I would guess your website would be the first choice, correct?
Actually, I tell them go to Amazon, just like I do, just like my wife and I, we do that every day. The Amazon, the people that deliver for Amazon, we know by name. I mean, if we actually got to live at one place for more than a month or two this last year. But the easiest thing is what I do every day is I go to Amazon and buy it.
Well, and to be truthful, so do I. 9 times out of 10, I'm downloading Amazon Audible or downloading a Kindle book because it's
Yeah,
just
we're both Audible
convenient,
people.
easy.
We both go to Amazon for our Audibles.
Absolutely. All right. Well, very good. Well, do you have any last thing you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up our show?
No, yes. The thing I would like to say is this has been the most different interview that I've had yet in all the podcasts I've done. And it's been way more personal. And thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm just looking to have a good conversation, and hopefully our audience just enjoys the ride. So that's the hope. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Well, we're going to stop the interview. Let me stop the recording here.